welcome back. I'm Becca.
And I am Bree, and this is Spooky Happy Hour. Y'all, we just had a whole ordeal to start before any of this, and let's just say that we're glad that it's Cinco de Mayo because then it's really
Yes.
acceptable. So even though you won't be listening to this on Cinco de Mayo, it is Cinco de Mayo for us. So grab whatever drink that you
Yeah.
have because we're about to
Heyo.
start. Cheers.
Cheers.
How's your weekend been?
My weekend has been good. Pretty much just been busy editing all these videos. So the video that was up last week that you guys already watched, I was busy editing that while we're filming this. But yeah, you had some stuff going on, so we couldn't film yesterday, which is fair enough, but it gave me some extra time. And other than that, my week was busy. Just running around, little gopher me at work, doing lots of stuff that other people don't want to do.
Jack of all trades, they come
Jack
to
of all
you.
trades, yeah, pretty much. I gotta help unload a truck, and then I gotta buy some coffee, and then I gotta do this and that. But Thursday, I took the whole day off. I worked for, of course, when I have most of the day off, I had to leave at 11 o'clock to get to Calgary for 12:30. I had a tattoo appointment, and it was a big thing for me. And of course, that morning, work was like, we need you to do this and this and this and this. And I'm like sweating and dying. And I'm like, guys, I have to leave.
I
And
got
of
shit to do.
it's so important where I'm dropping more dough here, people. But for some reason this week in the mountains, it had to snow. It's been snowing for 3 days. I had like a foot of snow on my car, I think Wednesday morning. I was super
Oh, hell no.
unimpressed. And I was supposed to have this appointment earlier and I canceled it because it snowed. So we pushed it back. And you're thinking, oh, May 2nd, it's going to be sunny. I'm going to have the windows down with the music up and driving. No, it was like snowy, but once you like get out of the mountains, it was all right. But on the way back, this was a 5-hour appointment. I've had this idea for this tattoo for years. Like I've been wanting it, but I just had to find the right person to do it. And she used to work out of a tattoo shop in Calgary called Electric Odyssey. The owner decided to close it down just due to like personal issues and they wanted to move. And now she has a little shop, just the two girls in the basement in a house. And Sophia did my last tattoo at Electric Odyssey, my arm, and her style is just perfect for what I wanted. So yeah, I have 5 more sessions to go.
How did you get the idea of it? Like, how'd you come up with what you were doing?
I don't really know. I don't know, I think I just saw this picture. This was like, I still lived in Ontario. I was still living with my parents. I saw this image of 2 ravens, and one was kind of like swooping down and the other was swooping up. And I was like, I want to put moon phases in the center of that. And I've just had this stuck in my brain. And I told her, like, I've wanted this tattoo longer than the last one she did on me. And she's the second person that's ever tattooed me. I used to go to a girl named Rachel back in good old Hepworth, Ontario. Very small. But she has done the rest of my tattoos, and I'm very picky when it comes to putting something permanent on my body. And her style, she's very picky as well. Like, she was editing a few things. It took a few goes to get the stencil on because it is on my side, it's on my ribs, and it's from like hip to armpit.
I was gonna say it's gigantic.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be that big, but I'm digging it. And the photos I sent her, like, she changed the ravens a bit, and I was just like, I just want these ravens, the moon phases, and I want like geometric shapes, and I want your style and flair on it. I'm usually super chill if I trust the person. I'm like, do what you want.
Yeah, it's
Um
so nice when you can have somebody that's you're just like, "I trust your artistic vision. You
mhm.
know me, you know the other tattoos that I have, like, you will make it work the best
Yeah.
way you know how."
Yeah, like, I tried going to a place in town before I got my arm sleeve, before I found Sophia, and I wanted to see this guy, and he was really good at it. I'm not gonna name any names just due to the area. He's very well known, but, I was not received very well with the girl who was asking me questions, and me being someone in customer service for so long, like, that's huge for me. If you can't approach someone or, like, take the time to, like, step back or just, like, listen to a person,
Mm,
we're not gonna have, an agreement, and it just was like I was like, "Hey, like, I'm looking for this kinda tattoo, like, this is my idea," and she kinda just, like, turned and looked at the guy who was I get you're with someone, you're tattooing someone, you're busy, but he didn't look at me, he didn't, like, stop, he didn't say anything, and she was just like, "Hey, wanna do this?" And he's just like, "Email me." And I was like, "Ooh, that's not a good
yeah, like, I'm
sign."
already here.
Yeah, and, like, vibe-wise, like, there's certain people, if I get a certain vibe off you, like, it's a no-go. And I emailed him when I got home, but then I just started like scanning for people outside of the town. And I just found like that little shop, Electric Odyssey. I emailed them. They had a receptionist, and she was like, I think this girl fits what you want. And she put me with her. And then
Mm,
once she emailed me the next day and she was like, "This idea sounds sick." And she was like genuinely excited when I went for a consultation. She was like,
mhm.
"Dude, I'm excited." And I'm like, "If you're excited, then that makes me more excited." And then like this appointment, same thing. She was like, "I was so happy you messaged me. Like, I can't believe it's been like 5 years since she's tattooed me, and like
Oh, wow.
I don't have the money for this, but I don't really care at this point." It's
Hey, like you said, you've been waiting for it for, like, years and years, and now it's just
mhm.
finally coming to fruition, so after 5 more sessions, you'll be able to call it yours. It's done.
Yeah, 5 sessions that are 5 hours, so hopefully September it'll be
Mm.
done, and then everybody can see it if you're going to New Jersey in November.
Yeah, I can't wait because the outline looks dope already, and I know that you shared the kind of, like, design overall that you were looking for, and it just kind of, like, suits you and suits your personality too, and it's nice when, like remember me and my friend, I went to go visit her, she was living in Utah at the time, and, we went down to a shop that was, like, nearby, and it was open, and everything looked, like, great, and, we got she got one and then I got one, and we ended up taking pictures of them and, like, putting them side by side in a picture and, like, posted it on social media and was like, "Which one is which? Like, who got what?" And it was
Oh.
so funny that, like, people would be like, "Oh, she definitely got this one because of X, Y, and Z, and no, Bree definitely got this one because she likes this," and, like, half of them are right, half of them are wrong. But it's
That's fun
funny
though.
though, like, like, to see, like, with your personality, right, or how
Mhm.
people know you, like, what they would normally pick, but when you showed me yours, I was just like, "This kind of, like, just suits her whole vibe and her whole personality."
Yeah, just like I think I got my first tattoo when I was in hair school, so, like, couple years after high school. I was in hair school. One girl that I was in school with was like me, loved metal music, horror movies, tattoos. And the one day she's like, you know what? Originally, my first tattoo, her dad was supposed to do out of their house. And I was kind of glad he wasn't home.
Whoops.
And he was like a biker, skullet looking kind of dude. And she was
You
just
would've
like,
walked out looking like you had a prison tat or something.
yeah, and I'm not that hardcore.
You're like, "I don't
But
wanna give the wrong image off or the
yeah.
wrong vibe," you know?
No, definitely not. And then I found, Rachel just, like, in that area. I think he said Hepworth, I mean Hanover. It was in Hanover, Ontario, and, yeah, she literally did 3 tattoos in that year. So I had, like, 1 down the back of my neck, I had a quote. I have a quote on my arm. I have like dog footprints on my foot. And then after that, it was just like I have one on my side and one on my chest and one on my neck and one in here. And like this new one is number 10. So,
Mm.
but they're not like this is my biggest one and I can hide them all. So I've been very meticulous about that. The only reason why I have the one on my chest is because I used to have like dermal piercings. And after 2 years, those like resurfaced and I got them redone and they resurfaced again. And now I have like 3 scars on my chest and they just look like a street light. I'm like, can we
You're
do
like, "I gotta
something?
cover this with something."
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that was my week. And then
Well, looks pretty
also,
badass.
yeah, I'm super pumped. What about you?
Well, today's like, I guess, like, a difficult day if I let it be a difficult day. So my, my best friend died, like, 10 years ago today,
Oh, wow.
and the last time that I saw him was, like, March 2014. He was living with his mom down in Florida, and I actually went, it was, like, my last, um, second to last semester of grad school, and I was like, "I have spring break, like, I need to get the hell out of here." So I actually went down to New Smyrna Beach. That's where his mom lives, and he was living with her for a while. So I went down for spring break, and he like knows me so well. So when I first got there, he had the whole like week planned. He was like, "We're going here and
Mhm.
we're going here." Most of it involved around like spooky and historical stuff and drinking.
Of course.
So it's like I swear we probably finished like loads and loads of bottles of wine because that was like
Oh
our
my god.
thing. So it's like we went to a winery and had a tasting. We got so many bottles. His mom had like the whole counter full before I even got there. So why we had to even go out and like get any, like we didn't really need to, but it was really fun. And we went to the beach and he showed me all around. We went to St. Augustine and went to this like really old lighthouse there, and it's supposedly haunted too. We did
Yeah.
shopping and all this other stuff, but he's the one that actually took me to my very first psychic medium because
Ugh.
his wherever when they lived in New Smyrna, it was like I don't remember how far it was away, but it's called Casadega, Florida. And it's like the spiritualist capital of like the I don't know if it's the world, the US, like, but definitely
What?
like of the US. It's a spiritualist camp where it's like a whole community, but the only people that are allowed to live there are certified psychic and mediums in training or that they've already gone through
What?
their training. There's healers, there's like classes that you can go and take. There's like a camp store, there's like a little hotel, like bed and breakfast type thing that you can go and like visit. So have you ever I mean, what is the movie that I'm thinking of? Oh, Wrong Turn. You know when they're just like
Oh.
driving back and they're just it's like really creepy and you go real slow because the road's a little bumpy and you're like, where am I? You're waiting for something to take place. Like
Mhm.
that's this big long road back to this like
Ew.
spiritualist camp. So I told him, I was like, I'm getting kind of like Wrong Turn vibes here. And he was like, no, it's really cool. You know, you're gonna love it. And a um we had a friend, like a mutual friend of ours, die the summer prior. So both of us went into the original reading, kind of like trying to see if he would come through. And
Yeah.
I mean, we think that he did, right? Like that was our own subjective experience or whatnot. Um, and it was really cool. I got so many things there, like from like the little store. I had like a tapestry, and he like handpicked me like a gemstone that I still have, and I just went like nuts in the store because it was
Mhm.
all like these metaphysical type objects or different books about all the different elements of stuff that we've been talking about for the
Mhm.
last few episodes. And it was so much that I could not fit it back in my backpack or my suitcase to fly home.
Oh,
So I
jeez.
was like, "Hey, you know, you're coming up in like 2 months." I said, "Why don't you just take my stuff with you in the car, and then when you come back up to" he was coming back, I don't know if he was coming back to, like, stay or if maybe he was just, like, coming for the, you know, week or weekend or something, and, um, so he drove back up, but he and my friend had gone to a concert, and then afterwards, he tried to drive home drunk, and he ended up
Mm.
getting killed in an accident,
Oh.
and I never like, we never got to, like, meet up after he got home, and
Mhm.
then it was, like, I think, like, finals week in, like, my second to last semester of grad school, and I got a phone call at, like, 6 a.m. from one of, my friends and was like, "Hey, like, this happened," and I called all my professors, I was like, "Push my finals, like, I can't there's no
Yeah.
way I'm doing this," and I ended up driving home from college and, had viewing, funeral, whatever, and I was talking with his brother, and I had mentioned, I was like, I was like, "I wonder if he left, like, the stuff like, all the stuff that I got the very last time that I was with him." I said, "I wonder
Mhm.
if, like, he brought it up, like, do you know if it's around here? Like, I would really love to have that." And this was, like, right after the funeral, and we had been at his dad's house, and he was like, "Holy shit, all that stuff is yours?" And I was like, what do you mean?" He was like, "Come on, like, we gotta go." I didn't even know where we were going. And he drives me to the impound lot where my friend's car was waiting to be demolished, and I saw the car and it was just like torn to pieces, like barely a
Mm.
car, like broken glass, like
Oh
everywhere.
god.
Things that were in the car were like looked like that they had been destroyed except for all my stuff. It
What?
was, like, reserved in the back, like, it was just sitting on the back seat, and there was no glass was in it, nothing was
What?
broken, nothing at all,
No
like, it was
glass.
just
What?
yeah, it was, like, wrapped in bubble wrap or something because nothing had touched it, and there were some, like,
Wow.
canvases even that I got, like, you would
Yeah.
figure that those would be, like, tore
Right.
up or, like, you know, corners turned or
Mhm.
something. Nothing. Everything was in just as good of a condition as when I got them. So, like, had I never said anything, like, his brother would have never put 2 and 2 together, and so I still have all of those things. So today we went to, the crash site and just, like, had lunch and put
Aw.
some flowers down and kinda, cleaned up a little bit of the area and, um yeah, whenever I was thinking about, like, "Oh my gosh, what am I gonna talk about this weekend? I'm gonna bum everybody out for this, like,
Aw.
very important, but yet very, like, sad and somber
Mhm.
day," and it was cool because I was talking to his mom this morning, and she was just like, "Maybe you'll get some sort of, like, sign later that, like, you're looking for, and I really hope that,
Mhm.
I really hope that you do," and I was like, "Yeah," so of course I'm, like, looking for it all day, and when I'm looking for it, I'm not getting it,
No, you're not
and
gonna
then
find it.
no, not at all, and then right before, I was, like, really stressing to be like, "Dude, what am I gonna, like, talk about for a weekly update?" I was like, "This weekend was, like, kinda crap, like, the weather was gross, I haven't done anything, like, nothing new here," and then it was
Mhm.
just like, I got a sign, right? I was like, "Well, wait a minute, like, this is a very important day to me and, like, the first real experience that I had, like, with anything in the other realm besides, like, my own personal little things, right, throughout, like, childhood and the
Mhm.
things that we were talking about, in episodes past was with him, and I was like, "How cool
Aw.
is it that we're recording on this day, and it's been 10
Yeah.
years," like, that's more of an important anniversary, so, yeah, it was really cool, and I've been back there numerous times now, like, I've gone
Mhm.
to back to New Smyrna after he died, and, like, I've stayed with his mom, and I brought a friend, and I took her to Cassadaga, and we had, like, another reading done there,
Oh,
and then I took
wow.
my mom 2 summers ago, and when I first moved back to Pennsylvania, I took, her there, and her parents had passed away, like, in that time as well, and so I took her to Cassadaga, and we did a reading there with a medium, and it's just kind of like I don't know, like, I feel like it's still, like, our place even though he's not,
Mhm.
like, here anymore, so it was really cool that my first, like, dipping my toes into that world was with him.
Yeah, and it's also important to talk about and tell people, because I do think everyone does experience something to do with death, whether it's, like, a friend or a family member. I've had friends in high school. One we weren't very close, but one with cancer, and then during college, I also had a he was a friend, but not very close as well. But he was in the friend group, and I was friends with his girlfriend, and he ended up dying in a car accident as well. They were just like on their way home, and she was driving, and they ended up getting T-boned, and same thing, like she survived and she broke all of her ribs, and it was a crazy experience, but all of us kind of did like celebration kind of thing. Like we all had a party in memory of him, and we all signed, like, he used to wear wife beaters a lot, so we all, like, signed, like, a wife beater, and, like, we all got drunk, and because that's, like, what we all did.
Yeah,
But
your
yeah.
early college days and, like, hanging out together, and
Yeah.
you just wanna keep doing that same stuff, and I think it makes you feel closer to, like, the person that's passed on, like,
Mhm.
in therapy or whatnot. People come with me to me for grief and loss all the time, and part of it is, like, finding some sort of, like, ritual of connection, and usually on this day every year, it sounds really funny, but I eat Chinese food, I do laundry, and I watch One Tree Hill because when I was in grad school and he was still at the same university, because we went to college together too, not just like from high school, but college together too. And I was living in this house and I didn't have any laundry services there.
Oh,
So
no.
I would take my stuff up every week and he would either cook me dinner
Oh.
or we would get Chinese food. I would do my laundry and then we'd watch One Tree Hill because it was like
Oh.
our favorite show to watch together. So it's
Yeah.
really it sounds funny, but that's why I do it, and
Mhm.
it's just those things that, like, keep you closer together even when
Yeah.
someone passed on, and it's it's something that I don't look forward to this day. I wouldn't say obviously every
No.
year, but I do look forward to, like, having that connection
Mhm.
present and on my mind, and it does
Yeah.
help me feel a bit, like, closer to him too, so although the today is sad, it's also still very happy at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like, I even though, like, I lost my grandma when I was pretty little, I have such vivid memories of, like, hanging out at that house, and I just remember there used to be, like, a tiny room. I used to play, like, this video game on the computer, and when I was doing that, my brother would be playing on the Super Nintendo, and he was playing this game, and typical guys, they're always, like, wanting you to, like, watch them play this game or, like, join in, and I would sit there and also watch him play, and for some reason, that game was just always, like, nostalgic for me,
Mhm.
and it just reminded me of being there, and I ended up going to Edmonton Mall, like, I don't know, a couple years ago, and, like, for some reason, I was like, "I need this game." It's called, like, Blackthorn. I don't know if anyone's played it. It's just like a shooting monster kind of game. I never played it. It was just me watching my brother, and I ended up finding it, and I've never seen it anywhere else. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna buy this, and now it's just like on display.
Yeah, at least if you're not even playing it, right, it's just something that reminds you of a
Yeah.
certain time or of a certain
Hmm.
person, and everything's so personal, so I know if, our listeners don't wanna share something, we understand, but I would love
Hmm.
to hear kind of those, like, rituals of connections that y'all use to
Yeah.
stay close to your loved ones that have passed on, and with everybody, like you were saying, everybody's experiencing this grief and loss is a huge theme I think in all of these locations that we go to, but like
Hmm.
especially with this one that we're about to review too. I think that like it was really built for like the lost,
Yeah.
like that era of loss, that theme of loss. It's just really pervasive. And so we're taking you guys today to Eloise Psychiatric Hospital. But
Hmm.
before it was Eloise, it had many different layers before it became the Eloise that we know today.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of backstory here that we are going to get right into. So, in 1832, the Wayne County Poorhouse was constructed and it was the first of its kind. In 1834, it became inhabitable. Due to poor structural conditions, this led to chronic displacement of residents. A Roman Catholic priest that was appointed the superintendent wanted to expand and construct a new poorhouse with an additional amenities that were closer to the city of Detroit. It was more centralized and provided much more access to railroads, the river, and other roads as well. By 1839, they continued to expand and buy more land with at least 160 acres. They also inherited a log cabin that was already built on the property, which was called the Black Horse Tavern. This was a pit stop for carriage riders to rest overnight, eat, or just rest for their journey.
Eventually, they would expand yet again 120 more acres and built a second log cabin behind the tavern to house the inmates, as they were commonly referred to at the poorhouse. Some residents from nearby poorhouses in Detroit were transferred there, and 111 individuals refused to go. They knew what was waiting for them. And in 1845, a brick building was constructed with a basement designed specifically for the drunks and the insane. It had two cells that held unruly residents, and they could be expected to be shackled in there sometimes for days. In 1865, a keeper's residence was built so that they could supervise the poorhouse and the farm. This keeper and their family, which was usually a spouse and maybe 2 to 3 staff, could supervise the poorhouse and all of the different residents. And those different residents were the elderly, infants, often whose mothers died during childbirth, orphans, blind and disabled people, and those who society really deemed as destitute, which would include the insane. Husbands could commit their wives against their will for anything like PMS or even spending too much money. And although those
Sweet.
populations were divided by sex, all residents were housed together.
Oh my
So you have
god.
people criminally insane to a woman that was dropped off for spending too much money, and they were all housed together.
Oh my gosh, like, I would be put here, 100%. Like, just for them not knowing, like, how women deal with hormones, like PMS, and, like, not knowing much about it, I couldn't imagine.
Well, and like the power dynamic there too, though, right?
Mhm.
Like if you were living in this area, which was like Westland, Michigan, right, is where Eloise is. If you were living in this area, though, and you heard like, oh yeah, my friend Sally that I go and I don't know, walk our
They
horses together or something, right? Like her, her husband just sent her to the loony bin because he didn't like the outfit that she wore,
Oh
or
my god, she
like
started
thought that
crying
her
for no reason.
exactly, like she won't get out of bed because she's tired or fatigued or sad. She must be
Whoa.
crazy. So like imagine the power dynamic of that, like
Yeah.
knowing at any point in time if I piss this person off or he doesn't like a certain something or I don't make a meal that he would like that way or whatever it was, right? Like he could just drop me off there and I'd probably be there forever because nobody else would come get me.
No, yeah, same, 100%. I kept saying, like, Penhurst was calling my name, but maybe I belonged here. Oh,
Yeah,
man,
like oh, so just like being
crazy.
a woman, in general and I don't know, maybe any time is hard, but I think that
Mhm.
like especially like knowing that that's where we were during those times.
Yeah, just crazy. But during those times in 1868, the first asylum was opened and all persons that were considered insane were transferred there. One historian mentioned that once they were transferred, they were shackled to the walls and forgotten about for the rest of their lives. In 1881, Dr. E.O. Bennett was one of the first groundskeepers with a medical degree. He removed the shackles, the chains, and cells in the basement because he was dedicated to the care of his patients. He also performed all surgeries, medication management, and treatments at the poorhouse and asylum.
And thank goodness for him because for his 20 years of dedicated service, it really operated the way that we would think that it was operating if one of those things were to be done here now, right?
Hmm.
They had staff. He was dedicated. His wife at the time, who lived with him as well, was also dedicated to caring for them. And then because of all of the really well treatment that he had done, some of the newspapers were even saying that he had like quote cured a couple people. I'm assuming that meant like they had a good enough medication management program that maybe they
Hmm.
did say like, "Oh, I'm cured," and maybe they could leave at that point in time. And as you could imagine, I'm sure this is gaining more and more traction as well, that, hey, you could come here and whatever ailments that you're suffering from mentally or physically, maybe you could be cured. So in
Mhm.
1887, they opened another building. It was an administrative building, and that held a chapel, a post office, a fire department, and they had a store as well. They built a power plant, and it was wired to provide electricity to all buildings. And at that point in time in 1887, that was a pretty impressive feat. So more buildings
Mhm.
were constructed, and they started to have a bakery, a schoolhouse, a morgue, and even a carpentry shop. Later that same year in 1887, it was determined that Eloise was unfit to house those orphans at the time because, from what my reading suggested, because there was so many different populations there and there was such a small amount of children, even though there were, a group of them there, they thought, hey, this is probably not really helpful, even though they built the schoolhouse
Mhm.
after they got to a certain age in their education, which I'm assuming would probably be more like elementary school
Mm.
for, us today.
Mhm.
Those orphans, when they got through that school, then they were taken into the city closer to Detroit to be adopted by families there.
Wow. And then in the 1900s, and those for you Gen Zers, we are from the 1900s. Am I right? Okay. Sorry, I had to say that. In the 1900s, the actual ones, expansion continued and renovations were constant just to meet the needs of the ever growing population, which led to the building to grow to 200,000 square feet. At this time, they were changed the name to Eloise after a superintendent's daughter, which was named after. This name caught on quickly. In 1913, the Eloise Hospital Asylum, the Eloise Infirmary, the poorhouse, and the Eloise Sanitarium, the tuberculosis hospital, comprised of what is collectively referred to as Eloise. At the height of its admissions during the Great Depression, over 2,000 staff were assigned to help 10,000 patients across 78 buildings on the 902-acre property. It was the largest psychiatric facility in the U.S. at that time. This institution and all of its buildings were said to operate as its own town, even having its own zip code. It was an entire town of pure torture, neglect, and violence. And once you were committed, you might have never left.
2,000 staff to 10,000 patients.
Frick.
Clearly, it became one of the, like you said, the largest psychiatric facility in the United States. And I'm sure that there was a lot of turnover having these many populations and
Mm-hmm.
these many staff. It's still very understaffed. 2,000 staff is like, wow, that's a lot in terms of numbers. It's not when you were
Sorry,
trying to
that was
have.
really loud. My face.
Hey, I'm gonna pause too for a refill. Here we go.
I did not expect that. I'm sorry to all the listeners.
We're just gonna take a brief break in
A
the
freak
history to fill up our
refill.
cups. We need them.
Oh my
Um,
god, well, just learning all that information, I need a full glass at this
right?
point.
2,000 people to take care of 10,000. Clearly, you cannot take care of that many patients. And it makes sense
Mm-mm.
why suicides are reported to have happened here, and honestly, quite regularly. So much so that they had to place cages on radiators so patients couldn't hang themselves. They placed bars on the windows so the residents couldn't jump to their deaths. Others stored their medications to take their own lives by overdose. And because mental health care was considered an experimental practice at the time, they used other methods that we would consider barbaric today: insulin comas, electroshock therapy, hydrotherapy, and even excessive labor as means to eradicate them from their insanity. A 12-year-old girl drowned in a hydrotherapy tub due to a lack of supervision. Thousands of deaths occurred on the property, and over 7,100 unidentified bodies are buried under a numbered headstone in the 7-acre plot. Efforts have been made recently to reconnect the names of those committed to the numbers in the cemetery plots to inform genealogists and put the dead to an appropriate rest.
Just crazy. The name Eloise has changed many times over the years. From 1974 to 1979, buildings became old and inhabitable, calling for demolition. A few buildings were left, one of them being the Wayne County General Hospital, which closed its psychiatric department in 1982, and then for good in 1986. The grounds that once was the town of Eloise is now an 18-hole golf course, condominiums, and a strip mall. 5 buildings are left standing, and they are used for miscellaneous purposes, one of them being a haunted house attraction. Hmm.
So this whole town, right? They have a whole town, everything that you could need to operate one in this area, 902 acres. And as the buildings continue to become decrepit over the years and fall apart, they take them down until they sell off all of these different acres of property. And I don't want to like rag on like the US, but I feel like we do this, right? Like here is all of this like historical land
Mhm.
that all of these things have happened on, and they're like, we don't really give a shit, like we want a golf course and like
Yeah.
maybe a mall and all this other stuff. So it's like, you go to Europe and everything's preserved for the most
Mhm.
part. The buildings that you could live in are hundreds of years old. There's no real structures, like, I feel like here as they do in the places at least that I've been to in Europe and the cities that I've been to. Everybody just kind of like lives within walking distance of a certain thing, takes public transportation. And granted, I understand Europe is very small
Mhm.
compared to the US that's very large. I understand that. However, it's like they really do take care of their history, and I wish that we would do that more because there's only a few buildings left that are standing from this entire town of Eloise that had its own zip code. And while there's not a lot of great history to preserve there, because like we've talked about all of the terrible things that have happened there, I do think that it's still appropriate to want to do those things,
Mhm.
to know its history and tell people about it so that they understand what this land was, before it was a condominium. Or maybe do people know who live in these condos that they
Right?
either purchased or are renting a living space that has been built over this land that has all of this history?
Mhm. This
It's like
always
you just
reminds
wonder.
me it always reminds me of Poltergeist, just
Mhm.
building on dead bodies, like and people do it, and it's sketchy, like, ex
7,000 of them, over
yeah,
7,000, and who knows if they all have these little,
that's so
cement
sad.
plots or not. Maybe they
Mhm,
just all got thrown in the mass grave. Like, you think about, like, TB,
mhm,
when it was
mhm,
that rampant at that point in time too, people were dying so fast that they could barely even keep up to store their bodies appropriately. So it
right.
makes sense to me that they would just like have this massive grave that like threw a bunch of these people in. And as we know from other episodes, families weren't going to come and get these bodies either
No.
because they thought that they could contract tuberculosis even after that person had died. So there's probably more. I would say that there's probably much more
Probably.
death, and there's probably bodies buried everywhere. And I would be very interested if those residents there had their own haunted accounts.
Mhm, and even just from what they show, it's literally just a number. Like, it's just,
Mhm.
like, your patient number 306 kinda thing, whether or not that was your number, if they did even tag them when they were there. But, like, did they just, like, bury them or did they burn them? And that's a whole other thing as well, but there's no, like, name or, like, date of birth, like date of death, like there's nothing. And sometimes that can bring out some haunted accounts as well. Like a spirit could be angry about that. Like, I have no name on my plot. Like, what the F? Like,
Right, and it's like they were stuck there during their life, probably
mhm,
couldn't really leave unless they were one of maybe Dr. Bennett's patients, right, that were, like, cured, whatever that had meant back
mhm,
at that time. But now that they're stuck in the afterlife and nobody even knows who they are, and a lot of the plots too are really overgrown,
mhm,
and grass is starting to come up, like, around them. So that's not taken care of either. So you weren't taken care of in this life. You definitely aren't taken care of in the afterlife. And people have forgotten about you because nobody claimed you. And that's
No.
really sad to like not have 7,000 people that nobody either cared about, knew about, or really wanted to remember.
Yeah. I couldn't
So it
imagine.
makes sense that there's a shit ton of hauntings in this location because of
Mhm.
everything that we've talked about thus far. So spirits are said to want to communicate so badly due to feeling lost and forgotten during their time alive that they will hear audible voices. Shadow figures are captured. A non human spirit is said to dwell in the basement where growling can be heard. It's been named the Creeper, which, as we all
Here we
know,
go
I feel
again.
like each location has a little bit like of their own version of this, and this is a very common name. So, the Creeper. It has long talons and animal like energy. Some
Hmm.
say they've experienced a rush of energy go through them, like a spirit actually ran through their body. Disembodied voices, heavy footsteps, doors slamming, and drawers shutting loudly can be heard. Technology is manipulated very often, batteries die quickly, and a spirit even used a walkie talkie to mimic another investigator's voice.
Ew.
Creepy.
I have to throw in my nerdiness here at this point.
Hmm.
Every time I hear the name Creeper, I don't know if any of you have played the GameCube Scooby-Doo game, and every time you're walking by, like, it's called the Creeper. It's in the Scooby-Doo show. It's just like a big looking man, and he'll be just like, "It's the Creeper," every time. So every time, like, I'm watching this show or, like, rewatching episodes and they say the Creeper's in the basement, that's all I can hear is Scooby-Doo's voice saying, "It's the Creeper."
Maybe it like lessens the fear that like you
Maybe,
may have, like if you let it sink in because you
maybe.
associate it with Scooby Doo.
Oh my god. Well, they
Mhm.
are the Scooby Gang in real life, I guess.
There you go. That's right.
But, on another note, while the crew is on their merry way, they have an interview with Todd Bonner. He explains his experiences at Eloise while they sit down with him. His crew reported that they could hear his voice over the walkie, asking them to come to the basement, but he wasn't even on the property. He first started going to Eloise when he was about 16 years old, and after hundreds of investigations all around the country, he still stands by his statement that this location is the most terrifying he's ever been to. He showed the crew, our crew, a picture of an apparition caught on a Polaroid of what looks like a male in a white coat, most likely like a doctor's uniform almost. To me, it looks like this photo. He also has glasses as well, but that could just be my eyes. So could this be Dr. Bennett that he got a photo of?
Yeah, if he was so dedicated to for the 20 years that he was there actually providing really decent care, removing all of those things that were used to torture people before he had gotten there, it would kind of make sense to me that maybe he's a doctor that cared. So he would want to come back around and take care of these patients even after they've all laid to rest. Some of them, maybe not so much, but
Yeah, that's crazy.
mhm.
And my
So
light turned out again. Stupid battery.
creepy.
It's the battery.
Debunked, like stamped on there,
I
debunked.
just noticed that. I'm
Um,
like, "Oh, stupid thing."
and
Anywho.
this episode, they don't really have like a pit stop. So this is like halfway through the
Mhm.
road trip for them. They well, they do have a pit stop actually. They pit stop at Hillbilly Hot Dog. So it's not like your
N
normal pit stop, right? Where they're
no.
like having a fun like haunted theme adventure, like if they're not in
Mhm,
like Rock City, they're not at a haunted amusement park, they're not
mhm.
at like their normal pit stops, they're going to lunch.
Yeah,
And
they're hungry.
this place is it's so funny, even just to, like, look at where they are, like, I kinda wanna
Mhm.
go really badly, and I'm gonna be in West Virginia, next month, so I'll have to see, like, how
Do
close it
it.
is and if it's still, like, around or
Yeah.
open, but they do stop at Hillbilly Hot Dogs for some I think that Chelsea it looks like Chelsea's eating a hamburger, which I thought was weird because it's Hillbilly Hot Dogs.
Oh, I don't
Um,
know.
I know, I noticed that today whenever I was watching it, I was like, "Hmm." But the owner of this very unique establishment sings them
Mhm.
their little weenie song, the little hot dog song, and that's my, like one of my, I guess, LOL moments. That's where it comes in because she's singing her song, she's
Oh
clapping
my
her
god.
hands, like, it's very, like, yee-haw type, like,
Yeah.
kinda Southern type thing, and Tanner's face when she sings, like, she says, "Ding, ding, ding," and he's, like, has this face that's kind of, like, disgust meets, like, bewilderment, I guess. And it's just like he made me laugh so hard.
But he
Um,
also says it too, like, he starts immediately bopping
he
and clapping, and he's like, "Ding, ding, ding," and I was like, "Yeah, you get into it," and Dakota's more like, "What the fuck is going on right now?" I mean, like
it was so funny though. I about freaking died. And
oh
Dakota
my
is like, "Oh, I
god.
wish I could be that happy."
Oh my god. That was so funny to me because, like, he's just looking at her like, "Okay, this is super weird," and then she like, "You get a free ice cone, by the way, if you come on inside," and then, like, she walks away, and he's just, like, got his drink, and he's like, "I wish I could be that happy."
Right,
But,
he has these, like, little anecdotes all the time that are kind of, like, in that theme, right? Ugh,
and then
so
he's just
freaking
like,
funny.
"Oh, yeah, by the way, Chelsea, you're probably gonna hate me again this episode." It's like,
Whoops. Like, if you don't already on this road trip, right?
oh
Um
my gosh, yeah, like, this is,
I
like,
do
their
like that even when they don't have, like, your run-of-the-mill, like, pit stop that they normally would, right? Like, they still have really great discussions each
Mhm,
time that they do have one of these pit stops, despite what they're
mhm,
actually doing,
mhm,
and Chelsea kind of expresses to him, like, there's a line between, like, this scary and, like, the bad things that they might come in contact with and evil, and
mhm,
she's like, "Dude, if you're gonna cross this line at this location,
mhm,
I'm going to be pissed off at you."
mhm.
And as she's expressing it, like, in appropriate brother fashion, he says, "It's not destination happy." And Chelsea, with like the classic older sister type, like stare over to him, and her follow up was like, "You're an idiot." Like, I just
You
said
are
what I
an
had to say to
idiot.
you, and this is like your weird, like, immature response back, like, "You're an idiot. Stop."
Oh my god, this isn't
I loved the
destination
whole
happy.
pit stop. Like, I think that was more of
Yeah.
like my LOL moment for the episode was more of the entire pit stop because it was really funny.
Yeah, it's so lighthearted, and Dakota even says, like, it's like an antique shop, but it's, like, outside, there's, like, all of these, like, random things, I don't even know, it is like a honky tonk
It looks like you walked
antique
into
shop.
a junkyard and somebody put a restaurant in the middle of a junkyard.
Yeah. Even, like, the road sign was very, like yeah, I loved how it
Mhm.
said, "Now hiring," like, underneath it as well.
There is something else too that was written in the back and they spelled it wrong, which is like why it caught my eye first, but it said
Oh.
exorcist on the back. But I wasn't sure, like I couldn't even read like what it said, and I tried to like make it out a couple times, but the spelling of it being incorrect was what really got me to
Oh
like
gosh.
pay attention to it first, and then I was like, why do they have that there? But she gives him this kind of like ominous like be safe like after she delivers their food
Yeah.
too, so
But
Chelsea's like freaked out.
when she walks away and they're, like, looking at their menus, she can hear her go, like, "Yee-haw!" Like, in the background, like, she's, oh, at another table singing to other people now, and, like, Chelsea's, like, eyes go like, "What the
I
heck?"
know, I want to go so bad. I'm like, can you sing to
Yeah.
me? Like, I don't really like hot dogs, but I'll have one just so that you can sing me that song.
Yeah, like, do they do it to everyone that goes there?
Right, or
Like,
they
I
were
don't
just like
know.
special or something.
Yeah, like, I don't know if, like, any, like, listeners or viewers have been there, like, let us know in the comments, like, if
Yes,
you've
please
been to
do.
this place, like, I feel like I've seen some people in the Fear Club have gone, and I think you can get
Mm.
T-shirts, like, doesn't Tanner have a T-shirt from there or something?
Oh, maybe.
I
And they have merch? Oh, man, I'm in trouble.
unless I'm
Come next
dreaming
month.
this, but
Just making stuff on the fly.
I'm just making shit up. Oh god.
I don't really know if, like, hot dogs for me would be, like, the food of choice before going to an investigation. It just does
Mm,
not seem like a dinner that I would, like, really
no.
want before going on,
In your
like, a
stomach? Oh
yeah, I
my
think you
god.
said it how long? Like, 12 hours, I think that they were gonna be there or something?
Yeah, yeah, 12 hours. Oh my
So that's a really long time for, like, your last meal to be a hot dog.
yeah, and, like, some of
And I
them
don't
are
think I don't think
uh,
they were really anticipating, like, when they were going to, like, look up and see either. Like, I think you said, like, 200,000 square feet,
yeah.
right? Like, I
Yeah,
don't think
like,
that they were,
what?
like, preparing for, like, this huge
No.
type location, even though they knew how much
It's
square feet it was.
so
It's
big.
massive.
Like, 200 square feet, like, maybe you were thinking, like, in width, but that place is, like, it's tall and it's big, and there's, like, lot of floors to it as well, and what is it, like, 5 floors and a basement
Yep, 5 floors in a basement.
and
And I
just,
think
like
that every single one of them has their own you know what I mean? Like, their own type story to tell too.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, like, something happens on each floor in this episode, and things start going off, like, once once they roll up, they're all, like, super, like, shocked at how big it is. They weren't expecting it, and then once they go inside, um, they're going down into the basement just off of the door that they go through. I don't know which door they went through, but, they walk in, and I think it's off of Dakota's camera, and he's filming Tanner, and he goes down the stairs, and then Chelsea's, like, ahead of him down the hall, and then they hear, like, this blood-curdling scream, and Tanner's audio dies, but the one thing I noticed was Dakota immediately goes, "Tanner!" Like, he made that sound,
Yeah.
but when I watched it a couple times, he doesn't move, he just goes down the stairs and he, like, has his flashlight and he's just looking around, and it's, like, brick wall, and Dakota, like, blames him for making that sound, he's like, "Dude, I just like,
Right? He
I
was
put
like
that."
Chelsea's like, "Oh my god, did you hear that?" Dakota's like, "No, it's
Yeah,
Tanner." And Tanner was like, "Bro, that wasn't me."
it wasn't me, and I was like, "Way to go, start blaming your friend for making
Well, and
sounds."
it's so wild too because, like, Chelsea's the only one that responds, like, to it, but everybody obviously hears it, and she just kinda
Mhm,
freaks out, and I don't know if everybody else, like well, if Alex and Dakota were on the same wavelength in terms of, like, oh, it was, like, Tanner or it was, some
mhm.
sort of other sound or whatnot, but all of their audio start to die after they hear it.
Yeah, I noticed though it starts to die once they all are down those stairs. Once
Mhm.
they go through like, I don't know, is that like a portal threshold area? It just once they all go down, it's like off because you can see like Chelsea talking. And I was like, I think the third time I watched it, I was like trying to read her lips. I'm like, what is she
"What are you
saying?
saying?"
What are you saying? But I'm like, no, can't. Sorry, I'm not that good.
Yeah, well, it's just wild because it's all of them, like, no one's is, like,
Mhm.
hanging on by a thread, like, you can hear,
Yeah.
like, static, with it too, so everything is just done, and now they have to regroup, right, and say, like,
Mhm.
"Alright, let's figure out how we're gonna tackle this place because we just tried to
Yeah.
start as a group and obviously like that didn't work very well. So due to the
No.
size of the location, like we were saying, they do split into duos. So Alex and
Mhm.
Chelsea are in the basement, and Tanner and Dakota go up to the fifth floor where all of those like therapies, electroshock therapy and hydrotherapy, the tubs and stuff are still up there. So all of those therapies took place up there. Um, and they get up to the fifth floor and they just kind of start feeling it out, right? And
Mhm.
things start to happen. Tanner thinks that he sees some movements of like maybe a shadowy type like pair of
Yeah.
legs, but he like immediately doubts himself, right?
Mhm.
He's like, you know what? My eyes are playing a trick on me, man. Like I thought I
Yeah.
saw something, but like it could have just been me. And I really like how all of them kind of take accountability for that at some point in time. Like they
Mhm.
say, like, hey, these are scary places. Like, we think that we may see something, but we're not going to say that it's totally what I saw. So I like how they at least mark it in the videos of
Mhm.
like maybe my eyes are playing tricks on me. So it could be something
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, like, I thought I heard a noise, but it was just, like, him reacting to, like,
Mm.
thinking he saw something. Because I was like, "Did I hear something?" But then we have Chelsea and Alex in the basement, and the banter between those 2,
Freaking Chelsea. I think that's my other LOL moment is that like, oh, well, I guess we'll get to that later. It's I think when they're sleeping alone, but they do have this whole like, oh no, it is when they go into groups, right? Like she says to
Mhm.
him, she starts freaking out, right? They're like tweaking when they get into these duos or right before they start their little duo investigation. She like hears
Yeah.
something and she's just like tweaking out and she's like, okay,
She's like,
you're screwed. I'm screwed. She's like,
yeah.
everybody's screwed.
She literally says it. She's just like, "I'm tweaking out right now." And I was like, out of all the words to use, I'm tweaking out. Like, she's just so nervous and they haven't
Hmm.
really like started anything yet. But Alex gets like a bad feeling once they're walking around in the basement and like he's like saying stuff and then Chelsea just tells him to like shut up. And they're done talking.
I know
And
that's I
then
think that's what he's saying, right? He's like, "Oh my
yeah.
gosh, like it's so creepy," or like it's I'm getting a bad
Yeah.
feeling, and that's what she responds to, like,
Shut
"Enough."
Yeah, and then she starts talking again, and she's like, "It's like a maze down here," and I'm like, "Hey, you're freaking yourself out now." And he's like, "Yeah."
Well, she
Like,
I think she
Joey
even, like, foreshadows them too because she talks about, like, getting lost. I think she says, "Oh, it's so big, like, you
Yeah.
could really get lost down here," and he's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, yeah." And then they start hearing this, like, running from above
Mhm.
them, and so they're, like, on edge already, and they hear a noise from the walkie-talkie. It kinda, like, just sounds
Yeah.
like if you would've, like, hit the button to talk and then turned it
Mhm.
off, like, that just kind of noise that it makes to let you know someone's trying to communicate. Um,
Yeah.
so they get I mean, they're freaked out, obviously,
Mhm.
already from what they walked into, and now they just have, like, these little things, like, Chelsea can't even take Alex's talk of like, a bad feeling, sh so they're really on edge.
Yeah. They're on edge, and then we've got Dakota and Tanner still up on the 5th floor, and they decide to take a break and pull out the digital recorder to see if they can get, like, any EVPs, which are electronic voice phenomenons. So sometimes using a digital recorder, you can pick up sounds that you can't hear with your own ears. Sometimes you get something and it can get a little creepy. And during their live playback, they do end up catching some talking, but like I couldn't make out anything, they couldn't make out anything. But at the same time that Alex's walkie goes off in the basement, they think Dakota is trying to walkie them. And I love that they do like a side by side view. Because during that time, Dakota is like talking to Tanner when Alex's walkie goes off, and they try to check in and they're like, "Did you say something?" And Dakota's like, "No." And you see, like, he doesn't grab his walkie. So it's kind of weird. And they did say that ghosts play with walkie-talkies, so
Mhm, and it interferes with those communication devices, and they wanna communicate so badly too. So,
mhm,
I'm wondering, like, hey, this is probably why they're doing this right now. They're trying to communicate with them. And so after they do discuss, like, hey, this is what we've experienced and this is what I've experienced, they end up meeting up at base camp. So they're debriefing and they say, you know what, maybe that we should take some more like extra precautions, right? So they end up setting up two
mhm,
static cameras. One shoots in the third floor and then one in the basement with this additional REM pod. And so a
mhm,
REM pod is a circular device. It has like a little antenna and it tracks any changes in energy. So if there's any type of disturbance there, like in the electromagnetic field, it's going to go off, and it also tracks temperature changes as well. So
mhm.
different lights, different sounds for what is activated, either like an EMF type field or the temperature and the colors associated with whatever it goes off with too are in those categories. So they end up putting one of those down in the basement, and they end up going outside too to see what it's like around there.
Yeah, so they end up doing, like, a perimeter sweep. They wanna see the power plant that ran the facility when it was still run by coal. There's a bunch of coal still kinda, like, all on the ground a little bit. But as they're browsing the grounds, we go back to the static cam that's in the basement, and it looks like something at the end of the hallway. It almost looks like someone is just like lifting their arm and like putting it back down kind of thing, like testing the camera out almost, and then maybe like a couple minutes go by and then the REM pod goes off, and it's almost like it looks just like a shadowy arm.
Yeah, it's like
And
to me it was like this it kind of like moved like in this like I don't know, weird type of flailing like direction, you know what I mean? Like as if you went
mhm.
like this. And so
Yeah.
like if it was transporting itself down the hallway in this like little like roller coaster motion,
Oh,
right? Like it may have taken like 2 minutes to get down, the
interesting.
hallway until the REM pod lit off. If it was the same kind of I don't know, black
'Cause you thought it was like
shadowy
just like a squiggly thing going
yeah,
by.
like, it felt like it was, like, this thing that came in and out of, like, motion, but it had, like, this little, like,
Interesting.
wave to it, so I thought that, like, maybe, like, if that's how it, like, traveled through something that it would take a little bit longer to get to the REM
Oh.
pod, because it does take 2 minutes until the REM pod goes off, and although the REM pod's at the beginning of the frame, and it's a long hallway till they end wherever it was they caught that,
Mhm.
yeah, that's what it made, like, the most sense to me, but
Interesting. I thought it literally looked like someone's arm just going up and down.
mhm.
That's what it looked like to me, which is interesting. We have, like, 2 different
I know, we all
ideas.
have our own, like, perceptions
Yeah, I
about, like,
never even
what
thought of
we
that.
see too. Even, like, when we hear
Yeah.
something, right? Like,
Mhm.
you might hear, like, "Oh, it sounded like a door slamming," and to me, it'd be like, "Oh, I thought it was more of, like, a dragging sound." Like, I picture, like, a
Yeah.
desk being drug across the floor or something, you know? Like, we all have those
Yeah.
mental pictures that we get whenever we, like,
Mhm.
hear something or we see something unexplained and we wanna assign some sort of meaning to it.
Yeah. Um, but when they return from their little sweep from outside, the duo switch locations, and now we have Alex and Chelsea, and they are exploring the third, fourth, and fifth floors. And Dakota and Tanner head into the basement where that weird black mass was captured, unbeknownst to them. So Tanner and Dakota, they kind of keep their guard up and they head into like the kitchen area. And this is where earlier they were shown the picture of the apparition of the doctor. Tanner decides to take pictures on his phone just to see if they can like recreate the same thing. But usually when you do that, nothing does happen. So they don't capture anything. Then they start to hypothesize that maybe the doctor and the creeper are kind of related in some way, which is, yeah, like an interesting
You never
theory.
know, right? Yeah, they have their hypothesis, their theory, and I think that like you were saying once too, like when something is dead for like a long time, it might start to forget like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
who it is too, and might develop into this just like straight dark energy. So there could be so
Right.
many things like that, right? Like if you're this forgotten soul and you stay like that for hundreds of years and you're one of those 7,000 forgotten souls, any one of them I'm sure could have taken that role of the creeper as well. So you
Mm-hmm.
never know who
That's
that is, but
true.
they do start to have their own theories. And then as they're theorizing about that, we go back up to the fifth floor where Alex and Chelsea are at now. And Alex starts commenting on the size of the rooms, like they're so small to have housed as many patients as it actually
Mm-hmm.
did. So they end up finding the hydrotherapy tub and in that room, and Chelsea starts talking about the 12-year-old girl that died in there. And I really love that Chelsea's always so good at like empathizing with any
Mm-hmm.
potential spirits. Like I think she takes the history and all of those stories to heart. So when she goes into these different places, she's always like, "Oh, I can't imagine
Mm-hmm.
how this person must have felt, or do you remember when we heard that story that this happened here and how awful." Like I think they're all really good at empathizing
Mm-hmm.
with and being respectful of the history and whatever potential spirits might be there. But I think that she's just like the best at it. I don't know if it's because she's the only woman type
The
energy
girl
in the
thing.
group or what, but I do think that she tries to connect more on like the emotional level than anybody else does.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, 100%. And especially when it's dealing with like a 12-year-old girl that died. Um, Sometimes you can just feel that energy almost, and it's super sad. Like Hydrotherapy is a weird thing. I see that in, like, horror movies all the time, of that usually it's like they crank the heat up to a max, and, like, I just never understood the theory of it, like, what that's gonna do to your brain, like, that's really all it's gonna do is fuck your body up, really,
Yeah,
burn
they
your
hoped that
skin.
it would, like, reset your brain so that they would
Yeah.
hold you under the water until you were,
Mhm.
like, very close to death, and then they
Mhm.
thought that if you could have that, like, near death experience, that it would somehow reset your brain, you would come back from underneath the water, and then you would be, like, almost kind of like born again type thing, and it kind of reminds me of, like, in Christianity and other types of religions like Catholicism
Right.
about, like, baptism, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna come
Oh,
underneath the
okay.
water and you're gonna come back up and you're like,
Mhm.
this different person that's like committed their lives to a certain path. And I think that like
Interesting.
at that point in time, maybe some of those like religious type things were also happening too. Like if you could have a near death
Mhm.
experience where you could see the other side, like maybe it would cure you of all that you're experiencing so that when you came back up from the water, like you would be all fine.
That makes
Um,
sense.
so
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that was kind of like a component to those, but this 12-year-old girl, right? And they used to like kind of like almost like mummify them. They used to wrap them in towels before they got there,
Mhm.
and then they would like all of that, like you feel like all that pressure on you
Mhm.
from moistened like towels and like you're soaked
Yeah.
and just like kind of almost like mummified. So she had to
Oh,
have been there just like wrapped up in all of these towels, mummified and staying in this water until yeah, like people forgot about her, and if she can't like get out or she can't move, she just
yeah.
drowned.
Oh, that's so sad. Yeah, they were technically saying it was almost like a form of, like, waterboarding, which is
Mhm.
what the military do, but yeah. On another note, Dakota at this point says he feels like something is down at one end of the basement, and they start seeing old furniture that's really creepy, and it kind of creeps them out. In fact, they are so freaked out that Dakota says he feels sorry for whoever has to sleep in the basement.
Foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing. And then you can hear kind of like a disembodied voice, which Tanner thinks, like, what am I trying to say? I
I
don't
think
know.
he
The
thinks that it says, like, Dakota. I don't hear that, like,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
like, "Oh, man, dude, like, I think it said your name." That's the part that I'm kind of, like, tripping out about, but when I'm hearing it, it just, like, I can't
It just sounds like
make
a
anything
yell.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I think these tequila cocktails are hitting me.
Right, maybe, Tanner had one of them too since he thought that, the scream or whatever it was said Dakota.
Dakota, maybe. Oh my
But
god.
even Dakota, like, he said earlier, he's like, "Dude, I don't" like, when they were doing the packet route, he was like, "I don't know what I'm gonna do if I hear another disembodied voice." And when he
Mhm.
hears that, like, he, like, crosses this stress threshold from this door into a hallway, and, like,
Mhm.
it's, like, down the hallway to the left is that he hears this noise, and, like, just the look that he has on his face, he's
Mhm.
really freaking terrified, and he has to even, like, take a minute to compose
Yeah.
himself after that, but they wanna make sure, like, let's leave a REM pod here because this was
Mhm.
an area that was obviously pretty active at that point in time. And then as he's walking away from it, it continues to go off. Like after he puts the REM pod down, it just continues to
Mhm.
go off. And he like kind of even like turns away because he's like, well, wait a minute. Like I thought it would stop going off the further I got away from it. But they show
Mhm.
you, him and Tanner both, like they show you how close you can get to the device without it
Mhm.
actually going off anymore. So it
Yeah.
explains that like their near presence was not even affecting it. So it had to have been something that was paranormal that was making it go off even when they were further away.
Yeah. And then at this point, Alex and Chelsea enter a common room space on the fourth floor. It's kind of like freaky looking because there's like chairs that are still arranged in like a circle, just like what a group would do during like a treatment facility. They would sit and talk about stuff. They conclude their time and explore more, and as they do, they start questioning their direction because they end up going one way, and Chelsea's just like, wait, this is north, so we have to go this way. And they're kind of like, you can see like she's got a big smile on her face while they're walking. And then you can hear like crashing sound. Chelsea starts screaming. Cameras are being fumbled around.
She's off. She's running. She's
She's
like,
like, "Ah!"
screw you, Alex. Peace out. Bye.
Yeah, and he is just like, he seems so frustrated with her. He also reacts as she's running away, and he runs after her, like, saying her name. She's, like, yelling to get Dakota because she's always like, "Dakota!" Like, she got someone to blame, and it's always Dakota.
And she
And then
always thinks someone's in there too. Like
yeah.
anytime that like there's like she hears something and it really freaks her out, she's like, "Oh my god, this could be a person here. This could be a person in
Mhm.
here." And usually after that happens, then everybody does get together. They end up doing a sweep so that like no one's really alone, but they
Yeah.
don't do that this time. Um
No.
but I think that she like kind of subconsciously thinks like, "Oh my gosh, if that's the first thing that comes to her mind, then they can go like debunk that." But they don't
Mhm.
actually do that this time. Alex just pretty much is just like, "Shush. Like, you're okay. You know what I mean? Like, you're fine." He reacts
Yeah.
to it, but he's like, "No, I'm not getting Dakota. Like, we're
Mhm.
okay." Like, I'll radio him to say, like, "Hey, this is what's happening, but like, let's go explore." So I
Mhm.
think he ends up kind of like calming her down too and says, like, "All right, well, let's go in this direction. Like, let's see
Yeah.
what the source of this like crash or whatever it was." I know that they said they sounded like it was more of glass shattering, but
Yeah.
they don't end up finding anything. It could have been
No.
poltergeist activity if that was indeed the case, but they
Mhm.
don't have any clues that point towards that. But by this point in time,
Yeah.
it's like 2:37 in the morning, so they need to catch up again, get new batteries, debrief, and then they
Mhm.
select their scariest sleeping arrangements.
Yes, time to sleep alone.
Mhm.
Oh, the best part of the night. So, they decide to pick their locations and, sorry, Dakota.
Poor guy.
The basement is calling. It's just
Mhm.
fate. It's fate at this point. You are the most scared, so you're gonna get the basement. He always
Poor
gets the
guy.
basement. He he felt bad for whoever got the basement because the disembodied voice was there, and it was just
Mhm.
meant to be at this point, I think.
Yeah, it's like everything that he said too in the episode, like, whoever has to sleep in the basement, that's really gonna suck. I don't want to hear another disembodied voice when he was talking during the packet read. I'm like, you experienced both of those things, dude, and you had the basement as your sleeping location.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like they should just like learn at this point in time, like, don't even put it out there because the
Yeah,
universe
don't
comes
say
around
it.
and gets it to you.
It's very true. When you wanna manifest something, you say it out loud or you think of it, and
It
sometimes
happens.
it happens whether you like it or not. Then we have Chelsea. She's freaking out over the fact that she's picked the 3rd floor, which is the where the EVP was captured. Tanner ends up getting the 4th floor where we heard the crash glass shattering break. And then Alex gets the 5th floor, and this is where Tanner thought he saw like a shadowy leg kind of thing. And they sleep alone just for 3 hours. It's a short little nappy poo. Um, Tanner ends up turning on a REM pod that's kind of near him. It's a couple feet away from him in his sleeping arrangement. Preparing for his overnight, Chelsea starts getting set up and says, "Lord help me, Jesus protect me." She says this in the Sweet Springs episode as well. And I find sometimes when you say stuff like that, like it just kind of calms you down a little bit.
Yeah, she needs to like ground herself. And I think that
Mhm.
she's calling upon the faith that she has at that time to give
Mhm.
her the strength to make it through the next 3 hours. And it doesn't seem like a lot happens in the first couple hours that they're together, but there's like about a 45-50 minute like time slot where
Yeah.
everything like events just occur on every single floor,
Mhm.
like besides Dakota because he's in the basement of course, but the rest of them, they react to this loud bang between like
Yeah.
4:20 and 5:15. Like that's the kind of time frame that we're going on here. And Dakota
Mhm.
can't hear it. But they all react to it. And then
Mhm.
Alex checks in on Tanner to see if he heard it. And as they're talking, Alex's walkie goes off and a gigantic
Yeah.
scream comes through. But then
Me
right
too.
after that, Tanner's REM pod goes off in his location, and Alex and
Yeah.
Tanner are still, like, talking to each other on, like, the walkie, but then
Mhm.
Alex walkies Dakota about what had just happened, like,
Mhm.
the loud bang, and then his walkie going off and the scream coming through, and then during that time, Dakota sees something down the hallway, and it's the same place where they captured that, like, black, like,
Right.
like, the arm or the mist, whatever the black, like,
Yeah.
shadowy type thing was, and he even says, like, "Oh, man, like, maybe my eyes are playing tricks on me," but it
Mhm.
was, like, one event transferred to the other one
Mhm.
through the walkie.
Yeah.
Like, the bang was heard by all 3 of them, but then
Mhm.
Alex walkies Tanner, Tanner has a happening go on at his location, and then
Mhm.
Alex walkies Dakota, and then that's when Dakota thinks he sees something, so it's kind of like I know that, like, technology was supposed to be very manipulated, and, like, it does, like, throughout the
Mhm.
episode, but it was kind of like they didn't have anything happen until that loud crash, and then when they started using the walkies, each one of them then who responded in their, specific sleeping arrangements had their own experiences in their
Mhm.
sleeping arrangements, and I thought that that was
Yeah.
really neat.
That is super interesting. I love the fact though when Alex is like on the walkie with Dakota and when Dakota's like, "I think I see something." Alex is like crouched and he's like, "Should I go down there? Should I go down there?" Like he's like ready to go.
"Please
And
let me leave."
yeah, he's like, "Can I leave my location and be with someone else?" But you have to have someone like that too, like ready to
Mhm.
just like jump in as well. I thought that was a funny moment, but usually all my LOL moments are Alex, so let's be real here.
Well, yeah, because I think that, like, he brings a lot of the, like, sarcastic type,
Mhm. I
stuff
love a bit
in
of
there.
sarcasm, yeah.
He does, he has a good sarcasm, and I think that Chelsea, her, like, disdain for everybody involved in certain types of moments lead to her really
Mhm.
funny moments where she's just so fed up with each one of them that she says something that we tend to laugh at.
Mhm.
It was overall, though, like, I kind of like, I really didn't think that, like, this one was as jam-packed with stuff until
Mhm.
I watched it back again, and
Yeah.
whenever I had watched it a couple times, like, the last thing that I was thinking too is, like, they were doing one of those digital recorder sessions, and there's graffiti at all of these different locations
Oh
because
my
people
god,
break
yeah.
into them and, like, write whatever or, like, draw pictures or whatnot, but in this particular one, there's graffiti on the wall behind Tanner when they're doing a digital
Mhm.
recorder session, and it says, "I see you."
Yes, and the way I heard that when I read it was like Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. "I
Very
see you," kinda thing, or is
yeah,
that like Lord of the Rings or something like that?
very, like, ominous, though, you
Yeah.
know? And I've been to, like, certain locations that have this type of things on them, like, whenever I went to West Virginia State Penitentiary, and there is an episode in the season where they do go to Moundsville, which is where this penitentiary is located, and they have things that were written by like inmates and stuff in there, and so you go into a cell and you see some of these things and it's written in their own handwriting, and it's just very I don't know, it's weird, like, you're going
Mhm.
to, like or even, like, you're going into a basement and you see somebody write this really creepy freaking message on it, and you're already
Mhm.
scared, it's pitch black, you're at a haunted location, and it's like, I don't need to be reminded that this
Yes.
place is creepy because I've been here for, like, several hours, I know
Yeah.
how haunted and creepy it is.
Yeah, I think I got that mixed up. Sorry, nerds. But, like, totally Lord of the Rings when, like, Frodo's, like, putting on the ring and then the big eye is just like, "I see you." Like, that is the voice that came to my mind. But even I don't even know if I said this in the Trail to Terror episode, but when they see that shadow figure in the hallway, there is a random ass silhouette of a person on the wall. And like, did you not see that? Like Tanner's like playing on the piano and stuff, and then like there's the hallway and Colin goes down there, but there's like a silhouette of like someone painted it on the wall. And I'm just like, they go around the corner, I was like, what the shit is that? It scared the crap out
I
of me.
didn't even
Why would
notice
you put
that.
that? And like if you have your camera in night vision, I was like, nobody's saying anything. There's just this. Like if you didn't know, like I don't know, that's just me,
Well,
but
it's like all the creepy furniture, like that
Mhm.
weird, like, couch that they saw, which, like, I don't know, I'm thinking to myself, like, some grandparent or, like, great, like,
Mhm.
aunt or something had that exact same, like, furniture set, you know? So it's
Yeah.
like there's just this creepy furniture, and then all the chairs that were set up on, like, the 4th floor, like, when they'd be in that common space or whatever, like, they're still set up that way. So I
Mhm.
don't know, it just gave, like, overall a very, very creepy vibe
Mhm.
with the
Heebie-jeebies.
history and the haunted accounts they know, like,
Yeah.
the inside definitely, like, enhanced, I think, like, the aesthetics of that.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. And it doesn't matter where you go. There's gonna be graffiti and a few of them I've noticed there's always like "ha ha 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 ha" written on the wall, and that's like something what the Joker would say kinda thing,
Yeah, or
but
like a Get Out, or, like, I think, like, one of their
yeah.
episodes is, like, The Devil Lives Here, just, like,
Yeah.
something even if, like, that's not said to have happened to that place, like, people, I think, that go in and they wanna leave their mark, and if they can make it as
Mhm.
creepy and dark as they can, they're going to.
Yeah.
So when you're there and you see these things, it definitely ups the creep factor.
Yeah, for
And if
sure.
we wanna talk about, I mean, not
Mhm.
even just, like, creepy, but definitely very, like, ominous, I think, like, a Phil too, you're gonna have to watch along with us because you can
Mhm.
stream all of these episodes, all
Yep.
of their seasons on HBO Max and Discovery Plus. But next episode, the crew packs up their equipment and they head to Madison Seminary in Ohio. And it's a very
Mhm.
similar location to Eloise, just kind of with a little bit of a twist. There's a lot more women specifically
Mhm.
involved in this next episode. So if you'd like to follow along, please do and catch us next week.
Yes, every Thursday, catch us at 12 p.m. Mountain Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And please don't forget to like and subscribe or even comment. We are seeing your comments on YouTube, and I'm trying to like all of them and respond at the same time. But liking the video just lets us know that you do like what we're putting out and that you do like Destination Fear, Project Fear, because this is what we're going to be talking about for most of our episodes. We will dabble with maybe a couple other YouTubers or other topics that are along the paranormal
Yeah, so
topic, but
follow along
yeah.
and see what we end up getting into. So enjoy
Mhm.
your Cinco de Mayo weekend, and we will see you
Yes.
next week.
We will
Cheers.